Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. My name is Robyn Salvin, she, her pronouns, please, and I will be leading worship today with Tamara Geveci, she, her pronouns as well. And today we will be exploring the power of music. And I'm going to stop you right here and let you know that both Tamara and I are criers. So we have our Kleenex. And for us, power of music sometimes means we burst into tears. So be forewarned. But we're good. We're fine. It's all good. I wanted to open with that electrifying flash mob playing Ravel's Bolero in a train station in Copenhagen, because I think it's a beautiful piece of music and I find it very powerful. When I was a kid, I remember sitting around our kitchen table with my family, my mom, my dad, and my sister. We always had music playing in our house, especially during meal times. Was it because my sister get grossed out hearing people chew? Maybe. Anyway, my memory is that it was a Saturday afternoon and we were having chicken noodle soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. My mom makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches. When Bolero came on the radio, this was the late 70s, before MTV started showing music videos. My dad posed the question, what do we each visualize when we hear the song? We went around the table and one of us said, I can't remember who, I can remember the grilled cheese sandwiches, but I can't remember who said this. They thought of a steam train carrying an old-timey circus running slowly across the open land at dawn with the sun rising along with the swelling music. So that's what I picture in my head every time I hear this song. Very powerful. We're so grateful that you're joining us today, either here in the Great Hall or on Zoom. And if you are here with us for the first time today, we offer you an especially warm welcome.
Now let us take a few moments to come back to ourselves, to quiet our minds, and to sit together in stillness. You may wish to sit up a bit more in your seat, upright but relaxed. You may want to roll your shoulders up and back, and then let them rest down. Allow your feet to rest on or towards the floor, and your hands to rest in your lap or wherever they are most comfortable. Let your eyes close or rest on the chalice as we return more fully to this moment. Sitting in stillness in this moment, let your breath begin to slow, your body to relax, your mind to quiet. Bring your attention to your body. Notice if there are areas of tension or holding. If it's helpful, you can notice the tension on an in-breath and invite it to release on an out-breath. You may notice holding in your forehead or jaw, shoulders or stomach. Hands, feet. Notice and invite that tension to release. As your body rests more fully in this moment, invite your thoughts and feelings to also settle. Noticing the earth beneath our feet and the seat beneath our body. Noticing the sounds in us and around us. Allowing ourselves to be fully present in this moment, not carried away by thoughts and worries and plans. Be here. And being here in this moment, we know that there are those experiencing loss, worry, fear, grief. Let our peaceful and calm presence support and nourish all those who are suffering, including ourselves. And knowing too that there are those in this moment experiencing joy, hope, love, and peace. May our hearts be glad for the joy of others and ourselves. Sitting together in this moment, may we greet and hold all that is. Let us have some moments for our own internal prayers or meditations. So, music is magical. Or so my daughter and I proclaimed as we wrote down the name of the Summer Stars religious education class we were planning to teach this summer. As Anna and I planned our lesson for the day, Anna enthusiastically suggested, "We'll write a song together." Me, being so happy that my 18-year-old wanted to teach RE with me, happily, though skeptically, responded, "Great idea." You see, the idea of simply writing a song is anything but simple to me. I started with piano lessons when I was 5. Eventually, I got good enough to accompany myself while I belted out Journey's Faithfully or Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And I remember as a teenager, I had the thought one day that I should write a song. I sat at the piano, played a few notes, and then closed the piano at a complete loss of how to do that. So I wrote down some words, lyrics, one might say, and tried to sing them. But they just sounded dumb. And how does someone come up with a good tune? This writing a song thing must be something magical. And I didn't possess the magic. And so, therefore, it was something that I just couldn't do. I'd ponder it every once in a while, or someone would say something about writing music, and I'd once again remind myself that I just didn't have that magic. Then my daughter came along. She wrote her first song at the age of 5 called "I'll Shut the Door on You. I'll Shut the Door, Not You." Yeah, yep. It's a real catchy piece that Beric and I still sing around the house today. In elementary school, she and a friend wrote a musical with complex, overlapping, and sometimes even good songs. A whole musical. In high school, she picked up the guitar and began writing music in earnest. When I heard her first real song, I was dumbfounded. I remember going into her room and saying, "You wrote that?" Actually, I said, "Who wrote that? You? What?" It was actually good. No dumb lyrics, no stupid tune. How had she done it? How had someone gotten a hold of the magic that had completely eluded me? I was amazed. Which brings me back to our Summer Stars RE class earlier this month. Anna and I and our 4 RE kids settled down to learn about the magic of music. We began by naming some of our favorite songs and sharing how they made us feel. We listened to some different styles of music and drew pictures, images, and words that arose as we listened. And then came the songwriting. We were down to 30 minutes, and I was thinking, there is no way we are going to pull this off. But Anna was confident, and the kids, ages 3 to 12, were enthusiastic. So we began. First, we came up with a theme. We brainstormed a bunch of rhyming couplets that worked for our theme, and then chose a chord progression that sounded right to us. And then I sang a tune to the chords Anna was playing with the words the kids had thought of, and oh my gosh, Could it be? We were creating a song. The kids started making suggestions about backup singers and overlapping parts, choruses, verses. In no time at all, we had a song, a real song. It was incredible. And it was so much fun. And we had done it together. The smiles on the kids' faces, the feeling of accomplishment, and the kids knowing that they had each contributed to this creation. A song that hadn't existed 30 minutes earlier was now real. Jamie Gargano, our director of DLRE, told me later that she was standing outside the door as we were working on it, and she could hear the joy and excitement emanating from the room. The kids were so excited when a few minutes later they got to perform the song for their adults. They were so proud of their creation. That joy of creating music together stayed with me well beyond that RE class. I carried it with me out of UUSS and right out into the world. I'd done it. I'd discovered the magic too.
When I was in law school, a friend, we'll call him Mike because that's his name, told me I had terrible taste in music. I don't remember what prompted the comment, but I know what it was based on. He loved Bob Dylan. I do not. It shouldn't have bothered me. I mean, I'm pretty strong in my conviction that Marble Mouth Bob just doesn't do it for me. But the fact that he was questioning my overall taste in music was highly offensive, mostly because I don't believe you can have bad taste in music. It's completely subjective. Music means what it means to you. You like what you like. What you find powerful can be incredibly personal. So zip it, Mike. Music has always been a big part of my life. Music was constantly playing at my house growing up. I took 10 years of piano lessons. I can now play exactly one song on the piano. And I played oboe for 7 years. I loved the oboe. Oh my gosh, I loved it. When my sister Renee and I were little, we had a record called Tubby the Tuba. Anybody else? Tubby the Tuba? Yes, nice. Oh, I'm glad it wasn't just us. If you don't know it, it's kind of like a Peter and the Wolf kind of situation where it told a story of, shockingly, Tubby, who was a tuba, while introducing kids to the unique sounds of different instruments. I remember after one family listen of the record, my dad said, oboe and French horn are the most difficult instruments to play. I have no idea what that was based on, but challenge accepted. Renee played French horn, and so did Tamara, I just learned. And I played the oboe in high school. At one point, there were 4 oboes in my orchestra in high school. I graduated with like 12 people, and 4 of us played the oboe. It was crazy. Um, Renee and I sang in our church choir, and she went on to NYU for vocal performance and graduated Vocalist of the Year. My singing was more reserved for what I mistakenly assumed was my soundproof bedroom, with backing tracks by Duran Duran, Genesis, and Aerosmith. But my most powerful interactions with music haven't been when I'm singing. They've all been when I've been in the presence of music being performed by others. Sometimes the most simple interactions with music have been the most powerful. Back in 2011, I went on my first international trip with students. Well, actually, it was my first real international trip ever. Sorry, Canada, you don't count when you're only 20 minutes away. It was a trip to France and Italy, and there were 69 students and 10 chaperones. We had traveled through France and Monaco, and our first stop in Italy was Pisa. It was a beautifully crisp February day, and we all had the opportunity to wander the grounds that contain the cathedral, the baptistry, and of course, the Leaning Tower. A handful of us went into the baptistry at exactly the right time, because once we entered, the Pisa guides closed the doors behind us and told us that this baptistry, dedicated to St. John the Baptist, is known for its acoustics. We were told to head up the stairs along the wall and from the top of the building be still and quiet. And a young woman sang out one sustained note. The sound of that note in that building is one of the most powerful music experiences I've ever had. It was so simple, so pure, like nothing I've ever heard before or since. It was so amazing to me that the architects of that baptistry, completed in 1180, were able to create such a perfect structure for music, a note to sound that way. It took my breath away, and I just stood there, stunned, for quite some time. And then I fell down the stairs. Yes, in typical Robyn fashion, I turned around to descend the stone stairs and, well, descended quicker than I anticipated. I didn't get hurt, but there was some spectacular arm windmilling. It was great. Have I mentioned that I'm a delight to travel with? And sometimes, honestly, usually more for me, it's musical cacophony that moves me the most. Dan and I got married in an Episcopal church just outside Portland, Maine, that had a magnificent pipe organ at the back. When we met with the organist about what music we wanted played at the ceremony, I very specifically said that I wanted to walk down the aisle in dramatic fashion, shocking I know, to the Ode to Joy portion of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. There was choreography. But neither of us had any ideas for the recessional, other than not the traditional wedding recessional. I just said I wanted it to show off the pipe organ. The organist was delighted and said, "Oh, so you just want a lot of sound?" He got me. I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea what he ended up playing, but it was perfect. I remember coming down the aisle and his back was to me and just seeing, ha, 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 and it's like feet were going. I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted. Yeah. In May, my son Jack graduated from Vanderbilt University. The school did an amazing job with the ceremony. They held it in the brand new football stadium, and it was a picture perfect day. Both sides of the family made the trip down to Nashville, and I was fully prepared to, say it with me, cry a lot, watching my oldest cross the stage. But of course, the only times I cried were at the processional and the recessional, because music is powerful. The processional was the typical pomp and circumstance, which always gets me. But it kind of went on forever because there were like 7 billion students and faculty and board members and donors and people who walked the dogs of the donors that had to process. The speakers were great. It moved along nicely. And despite Jack Salvin being at the end of the alphabet, they graduated students by school, and the political science school went first. So after Jack got his diploma, Dan and I sent our other family members back to the Airbnb saying they weren't going to miss much else. They weren't going to miss much else. Boy, were we wrong. At the end of the 4-hour ceremony, the chancellor had the students stand, move their tassels from the right to the left, and declared them graduates. And then fireworks went off, confetti flew through the sky as if a touchdown had just been scored, and in perfect Nashville fashion, Rodeo Hoedown by Aaron Copland blasted out of the speakers. If you think you don't know that song, I promise you do. Come on. Good job. Good work on picking that song. Well, I immediately burst into tears. It was the power of the music that finally allowed me to feel all the feels I was having that day. Every type of tear was released. Happy that he graduated from such a great school on such a lovely day. Sad that our time visiting Nashville on the regular was over. Proud of his success. Excited for what was coming next. Everything. The power of that song released all of that in me. Sometimes, however, it's the absence of music that can be powerful. There is always music on in our home and in our car. My kids, husband, and I all have slightly different tastes in music. Dan likes a coffee house cover. Jack can completely get into the Drake Kendrick Lamar hip hop battle. Lil loves herself a Harry Styles concert. I think she's going to her third one soon. And I am a 70s prog rock, progressive rock girl. We do overlap in some areas, but it's always clear who has aux control in the house or car based on the playlist. So when there's no music, it means something. 2 weeks ago, Dan and I took Jack out to California so he could start at Berkeley Law School. So proud of him. And California is cool and he's going to be fine. But people, California is so far away. So when we finally were saying goodbye on the porch of the house he's renting a room in, the waterworks started for me, just streaming from my eyeballs. By the time I got to the car, the had started in the sobbing. And I quickly realized that we were in a rental car, which had no Kleenex or napkins in it. So my sweatshirt that I was going to be wearing for the next 12 hours on a plane was going to have to do. And as Dan started the car, he quietly turned off the radio. And as we drove from Berkeley to the San Francisco airport in silence, we were both able to be alone with our thoughts without having to attach a certain song or type of music to our sadness. When the power of music is ubiquitous, its absence can be just as powerful. But enough about me. Music can be a powerful force in communities as well. In looking at our UU values, music can play a vital role in our interdependence and justice. We are an interconnected web within the UU faith and outside of it, and music can help bring all of us together. I was talking with my daughter Lily on the phone on Friday as she was driving out to University at Buffalo for her senior year and was asking her about how music has been powerful in her life. She didn't hesitate one bit. She said that music has created and strengthened her community of friends. During COVID, she was in her 9th and 10th grade for the brunt of it, and music helped her stay connected with her friends she could no longer see in person. One Direction had been a favorite band when she was younger, and when we were all locked down, she and her friends kind of rediscovered them. If you're not familiar with One Direction, think the Beatles, the Beach Boys, Duran Duran, New Kids on the Block, pick your decade. By sharing videos of the band and sharing thoughts of all of the members' now solo careers, she kept in touch with her friends in an uplifting and powerful way. And how about this for interdependence? Studies have shown that when music is introduced to jail and prison populations, it can provide inmates with an opportunity to connect with one another and promote a feeling of dignity and self-worth. Now, let me take you on a short detour down a road called Robyn's Weird Pet Peeves. Every year, I tell every class that I teach that I want them to go out into the world preaching 2 things. 1, vote. Just please vote. And 2, jail and prison are not the same thing. Do not use the words interchangeably. It drives me insane when people, especially people who ought to know better, like former attorney and current newscaster Savannah Guthrie, and even my Lord and Savior, Captain Olivia Benson on the TV show Law and Order Special Victims Unit, say things like, "You're gonna rot in jail for 25 years. No, you're not. Nobody rots in jail for 25 years. Jails are run by the county and are designed for short stays, awaiting trial or serving this year or less on a misdemeanor. And prisons are run by the state or federal government and are designed for longer stays, people serving a year or more for a felony conviction. Not the same thing. Okay, we're back. Music. Here we go. While there is no conclusive evidence that introducing music into prison communities or even engaging in genuine music therapy reduces recidivism or reoffending when prisoners are released, there is evidence that even just providing opportunities for prisoners to listen to or play music can improve anxiety, depression, and self-esteem. It allows incarcerated people to express things most prisons usually suppress: voice and emotion. Consider this anecdote. In 2025, a program run by the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, that brings music to underserved populations, brought a piano, violin, cello, and a saxophone into the Monroe County Jail. They set up in the courtyard and played a classical music concert. Inmates began to come to the windows to hear the music when the concert was over, they erupted into applause. The inmates were then able to ask questions about the music and the instruments, creating community between the incarcerated people and the musicians, and amongst the incarcerated people themselves. I guess this really shouldn't surprise us, though, because incarcerated people are just that, people. And we know that all people, regardless of their age, gender, social status, race, religion, can find interdependence in music. Another UU value that has close ties with music is justice. We know that music has played a huge role in movement seeking justice. The examples are endless, even if we just focus on the United States. Yankee Doodle had been a tune from the British in the French and Indian War in the 1750s, but the Patriots took the tune and put rebel words to it during the Revolutionary War as a snub to the British. The original diss track. Spirituals, like the song we're singing together today, were a way for enslaved people to connect, provide hope, and acknowledge their shared plight. In the 1940s, Woody Guthrie wrote "This Land Is Your Land" as a rebuttal to "God Bless America," pointing out that this country should belong to everyone, not just the privileged. When Nina Simone broke the color barrier and was the first Black pianist to play at Carnegie Hall, she wrote a song on the morning she was to perform called "Mississippi Goddamn," bringing attention to the continued wave of Black deaths in Mississippi during the Civil Rights Movement. She performed it that evening, and it ignited a spark of activism during a little bit of a lull in the movement between 1963 and 1964. But music advocating for racial justice didn't die out in the 1960s. We can see examples of it every decade that followed, mostly in rap and hip hop, with a particular resurgence after George Floyd's murder. And of course, music protesting war and promoting peace during the Vietnam era was incredibly powerful. "Fortunate Son" by Clearance Clearwater Revival, "War" by Edwin Starr, "Ohio" by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, "Give Peace a Chance" by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, "For What It's Worth" by Buffalo Springfield. The list goes on and on. All of these powerful songs were created and performed by the artists and the activists to seek justice. Finally, I wouldn't be doing my job as a teacher of government and politics if I didn't finish with this. Listen, school starts in 2 weeks. I got to brush up. In 2020, a podcast came out called Wind of Change. It's hosted by Patrick Radin Keefe and was put out by Crooked Media, the progressive media company that also put out podcasts like Pod Save America, Love It or Leave It, and Hysteria. So Wind of Change is an 8-part award-winning podcast that delves into a rumor that Patrick heard about the 1991 Scorpions single, "Wind of Change." If you ever heard the song, you know it by its opening measures. If you've never heard of it, and that meant nothing to you, Scorpions is a German metal hair band, believe it or not, from the 1990s and 90s. Do you need me to move something? Sorry. Can we just shout? Do you want me to use B? All right, cool. Well, Scorpions, you broke the church. So Scorpions is a German metal hair band from the 1980s and 90s, and Wind of Change is a song about people dreaming of coming together when the Cold War ends. It invokes a hopeful feeling in the Soviet Union that change is coming. It's important to note that the song came out in January of 1991, and the Soviet Union officially fell in December of 1991. Coincidence? Foreshadowing? Well, that's what Patrick Radden Keefe was investigating, because he heard from someone in the know at a dinner party in Washington, D.C., that the song Wind of Change was not written by the Scorpions frontman, Klaus Meine, but had been instead written by the CIA. Written by the CIA as propaganda to be used in the USSR, advocating for the end of the Cold War, with capitalism as the victor. The podcast is fascinating and highly entertaining, taking all kinds of twists and turns over its 8 episodes, and I highly recommend it. I will not spoil the ending, which decides whether or not it was written by the CIA, but I wanted to highlight the focus of the 3rd episode, called America's Secret Weapon. It's in this episode that Patrick takes a historical look at how the government has attempted to use the power of music to shape political events. In the 1950s, the Soviet Union was pushing back on the United States' claim that we were the bastion of freedom by spreading propaganda about the treatment of Black Americans by the government and by the people. In response, President Eisenhower's administration decided to start a goodwill tour featuring the globally appreciated, uniquely American, and dominated by Black musicians, jazz music. They sent Dizzy Gillespie and Duke Ellington to the Middle East to showcase this brand of music that the administration said reflected the American way, relative freedom within a framework of cooperation. In 1957, the U.S. government wanted to send Louis Armstrong to the Soviet Union as part of its ongoing goodwill tour, but considering how Blacks were being treated by the government, particularly in the South, Armstrong said, "The government can go to hell." By 1960, the U.S. set its sights on the continent of Africa as it was being decolonized and wanted to get into certain countries to persuade them of capitalism over communism. Here, Armstrong did participate, going on a 27-city tour, including performing a concert at in the Republic of Congo. There was a civil war looming there and a proxy for the tensions between the United States and the USSR, and his music was used to try to sway the Congolese to the American side. Oh, and a coup d'etat was being organized to oust the Prime Minister of Congo, which was successful, and then that ousted Prime Minister was murdered by a death squad, all orchestrated by the CIA. Louis Armstrong was very personally conflicted about being a part of the U.S.'s goodwill tour. To be clear, he had nothing to do with the coup. And unsurprisingly, used music to demonstrate that discomfort by collaborating with Dave Brubeck to create a jazz musical about cultural diplomacy called The Real Ambassadors. Nina Simone, the singer and pianist I mentioned earlier, was not lucky to be able to make that decision on whether her powerful music was going to be used by the government in the Cold War. Ms. Simone, who did not hide her political views and who ultimately renounced her U.S. citizenship, participated in a Nigerian art festival put together by the AMSAC, the American Society for American Culture, playing 2 shows in massive soccer stadiums in Lagos. She connected and played with musicians from around the globe, as well as meeting with Nigerian politicians. However, what she didn't know was that AMSAC was actually a cover for CIA operations. The power of her music was being used by her government without her knowledge. The connection between the CIA and AMSAC wasn't acknowledged until after Simone's death. This effort by the U.S. government to influence the Cold War by the power of music continued into the 1970s, when the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was chosen by the U.S. government to play concerts in the USSR in 1975. This time, this was done in a coordinated effort with the U.S. Foreign Service and their USSR counterparts. They first passed on the band America because they were considered too soft. Come on. And the Doobie Brothers from earlier because one of their album covers had some racy women on it. The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band was fully aware of their mission to try and push rock and roll into the Soviet Union, and also being acutely aware that they had KGB and CIA handlers throughout their tour. This story, of course, fed into the theory about the origins of the Wind of Change song and propels the podcast to the next episode. But it's such an interesting commentary on the power of music. that governments recognize that music can be so powerful that it can influence people's political views and understandings about governmental systems. I'm not a teacher who gives a lot of homework, but I invite you to spend some time this week thinking about ways music has been powerful in your life. What did it make you feel at the time? If you listen to it now, does it evoke the same emotions? What about your friends and family? What encounters have they had with music that have been powerful to them? And going forward, how can you use the power of music to live out our UU values?